India, a land of vibrant democracy, faces a chilling reality. 15 of its 28 states are grappling with active internal conflicts. This is not a war fought on borders, but a battle waged within, tearing at the fabric of the nation. From the dense jungles of Chhattisgarh to the rugged mountains of Jammu and Kashmir, violence casts a long shadow. Recent events etched in blood and tragedy reveal the depth of this crisis. The Chhattisgarh massacre, a brutal attack on security personnel, serves as a stark reminder of the insurgents' ruthlessness. In Jammu and Kashmir, terrorist ambushes continue to claim lives, leaving communities living in fear. These incidents are not isolated. They are symptomatic of a deeper malaise, a complex web of insurgencies and unrest that threatens to unravel India's hard-won peace. The Red Corridor, a swathe of land stretching across central and eastern India, is firmly in the grip of the Naxalite Maoist insurgency. In the north, the Khalistani movement continues to simmer, its embers fanned by sporadic acts of terror. Adding to the volatile mix is the rise of Mr. Galing and his parallel government, a direct challenge to India's sovereignty. These internal conflicts, each with its own motivations and complexities, pose a grave threat to India's security and stability. The government, faced with this multifaceted challenge, is struggling to contain the violence and restore peace. The Tarn Taran attack, occurring on August 15, 2024, shook India to its core. This wasn't just another terrorist attack, it was a brazen assault on India's Independence Day. The Khalistani terror group claimed responsibility, their act a chilling reminder of the separatist movement's enduring threat. The attack, targeting civilians celebrating their nation's freedom, sent shockwaves across the country. The choice of date was deliberate, calculated to inflict maximum psychological damage. It served as a stark reminder of the Khalistani movement's ultimate goal, to carve out an independent Sikh state from the Indian Punjab. The attack exposed the vulnerabilities within India's security apparatus. It highlighted the ability of these groups to strike at the very heart of the nation, even on a day of heightened security. The Tarn Taran attack was not an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern of escalating violence, a testament to the Khalistani movement's resurgence in recent years. This resurgence is fueled by a complex mix of factors, including historical grievances, external support, and the exploitation of religious sentiments. The attack served as a wake-up call for the Indian government, forcing it to confront the growing threat of Khalistani terrorism and reassess its security strategies. In a brazen challenge to the Indian state, Mr. Galing has established a parallel government. This is no ragtag band of rebels. Galing's regime boasts a structured hierarchy, mirroring the Indian government's framework. He has appointed ministers to head key portfolios, including home, finance, and external affairs, further solidifying his claim to legitimacy. The existence of this parallel government, operating openly within India's borders, is a stark testament to the government's waning authority in certain regions. It underscores the deep-seated grievances and disillusionment that fuel such movements. Galing's regime thrives on exploiting these sentiments, positioning itself as a viable alternative to the established order. This parallel structure, with its own set of laws and institutions, directly challenges the Indian state's monopoly on violence and governance. It creates a dangerous precedent, potentially inspiring other breakaway groups and further fragmenting the nation. The Galing regime's rise is a worrying development, a clear and present danger to India's unity and integrity. It remains to be seen how the Indian government will address this audacious challenge to its authority. Ignoring it is not an option. The heart of India bleeds. A vast swathe of land stretching across multiple states is in the grip of a deadly insurgency. This is the Red Corridor, a testament to the Naxalite Maoist movement's enduring power. Their stated goal is chilling: to overthrow the Indian state and establish a communist regime by 2050. This is not just empty rhetoric, it is a threat backed by a disciplined and well-armed force, estimated to be over 20,000 strong. The Naxalites, drawing inspiration from Mao Zedong's ideology, operate on the fringes of society, exploiting the grievances of the marginalized and disenfranchised. They target tribal communities, promising them liberation from oppression and a share in the fruits of revolution. Their tactics, however, are far from liberating. They have unleashed a reign of terror, characterized by brutal violence, extortion, and forced recruitment. The Red Corridor is a no-go zone for many, a stark reminder of the Indian state's failure to provide basic services and ensure the rule of law. It is a breeding ground for discontent, a fertile ground for the Naxalites to sow their seeds of revolution. Section 5. A brutal regime, fear and violence in the Red Corridor. Within the Red Corridor, fear is a constant companion. The Naxalites enforce their writ through brutality, employing a chilling repertoire of violence. Public executions, often conducted in kangaroo courts, are meant to terrorize and subjugate the population. Torture is commonplace, used to extract information, punish dissent, and break the will of those who dare to oppose them. Children are not spared from their barbarity. They are forcibly recruited as soldiers, their innocence sacrificed at the altar of revolution. These child soldiers, indoctrinated and desensitized to violence, represent a tragic loss of human potential. The Naxalites justify their actions as necessary measures in their fight against the Indian state. They claim to be waging a people's war, but their victims tell a different story. The stories emerging from the Red Corridor paint a grim picture of life under Naxalite rule. It is a life lived in fear, where dissent is silenced and basic human rights are trampled upon. Section 6. The People's War Funding and Impact of the Naxalite Insurgency. The Naxalites have created a sophisticated network for funding their insurgency. They extort taxes from businesses and individuals operating within their areas of influence. Farmers are forced to cultivate opium, a lucrative cash crop that fuels their war chest. Their annual income, estimated to be in the crores, allows them to procure weapons, sustain their operations, and expand their influence. The Naxalite insurgency has had a devastating impact on the Red Corridor. Development projects are stalled, schools are shut down, and healthcare facilities are abandoned, depriving already marginalized communities of essential services. The fear of violence keeps government officials and aid workers away, further isolating these regions. The Naxalites claim to be fighting for the poor and oppressed, but their actions tell a different story. Their reign of terror has only deepened the cycle of poverty and violence, trapping millions in a web of fear and deprivation. Their people's courts, far from delivering justice, serve as instruments of terror, dispensing their own brand of brutal justice. The Naxalites' grip on the Red Corridor is a tragic example of how violence and ideology can be used to subjugate and exploit the very people they claim to represent. Section 7. Fighting back. India's response to internal threats. Faced with this multi-pronged insurgency, the Indian government is fighting back. One of its key strategies is the formation of village defense groups. These groups, comprising local volunteers, are armed and trained by the government to defend their communities against Naxalite attacks. The VDGs are seen as a crucial line of defense, particularly in remote areas where the writ of the state is weak. This strategy, however, is not without its critics. Some argue that arming civilians will only escalate the violence and lead to further human rights abuses. They draw parallels to historical events such as the 1962 Sino-Indian War and the 1990 Kashmiri Pandit exodus, where the arming of civilians had unintended and tragic consequences. The government, however, maintains that the VDGs are a necessary evil, a last resort in its fight against the Naxalites. It argues that these groups are essential for empowering local communities and restoring a sense of security in areas where the state's presence is limited. Section 8. A future uncertain. India at a crossroads. India stands at a crossroads. The internal conflicts raging within its borders pose a grave threat to its stability and progress. The Chhattisgarh massacre, the Tarn Taran attack, the rise of Mr. Gailing's parallel government, and the enduring grip of the Naxalite Maoist insurgency are all symptoms of a deeper malaise. These conflicts, fueled by a complex interplay of historical grievances, socio-economic disparities, and political opportunism, demand a nuanced and multifaceted response. The Indian government's current strategy, focused on a combination of military force, development initiatives, and attempts at dialogue, has yielded mixed results. While some progress has been made in containing the violence, a lasting solution remains elusive. The arming of village defense groups, while potentially effective in the short term, carries the risk of further militarizing society and exacerbating existing tensions. Addressing the root causes of these conflicts, including poverty, inequality, and political marginalization, is crucial for achieving lasting peace. India's journey towards peace and stability will be long and arduous, requiring sustained effort, political will, and a commitment to addressing the underlying grievances that fuel these conflicts.